So here we go, let's get straight into it with the first question from Evan Rodgers. We continue to gain clarity on TSMC's 3nm fabrication, N3, and it should achieve volume production in July or August this year. It normally takes 6 to 12 months for the products to be introduced afterwards, with an absolute minimum of 12 weeks. What do you think will be the first Apple chip to use N3? Will we have to wait for A17 in the fall of 2023, or could the MacBook Pro 14 and 16-inch refresh in the spring of 2023 see its adoption? Welcome back, everyone. On today's show, we are doing your iCave answers, but before we get started, I am live streaming as well tonight, so set your reminders for that. 2. Want the latest Apple news, leaks and rumours? Subscribe and ring the bell. First up, we've got Evan Rodgers. Thoughts on the Twitter acquisition. So this is obviously the Elon Musk Twitter acquisition. Obviously, it's not finished yet. It has to go through some regulatory approvals and all that kind of thing. However, what do I think about it? I don't think it's going to make a huge amount of difference. I think it's going to be interesting, maybe, but I actually think that Twitter in general is actually a lot more open and a lot less censored than everyone already thinks. In terms of my opinions on Elon Musk, I think he's done some brilliant work. I think he's wrong about a lot of things in terms of his political opinions on a lot of stuff, and yeah, he's a guy that's wrong about a lot of stuff, but also he has demonstrated that he, in the way that he runs businesses, isn't afraid to change things, and that's the biggest thing. When he's told that he can't do something a certain way because it's never been done that way, or it's not possible, that's not enough for him to give up on it. Like, he was told you can't land rockets, it's not a feasible thing to do, and he learned how to do it. He's still the only company that can. Without Elon and SpaceX in the situation that we're in at the moment, we wouldn't be able to get anyone from not Russia up to the International Space Station. That's quite a lucky thing, because Boeing are absolutely falling apart on it. With Tesla, he was trying to do something that other people hadn't really done at any commercial scale and made it useful, and he's done really well at that. He's doing the Cybertruck, which everyone said, oh, it looks awful, nobody's going to want it, it's got more pre-orders than any other car in history. So I think, you know, I can understand people's skepticism. I don't know if it's going to be great for Twitter or not, but I think it's going to be interesting either way. Randomness R asks, iCave answers, are there Apple certified Qi chargers like there are for MFI made for iPhone? I haven't seen a Qi charger with MFI on it. I only charge my devices using a 4-in-1 Qi charger. Do you think they will damage my devices? I bought this 4-in-1 wireless charger off Amazon and AliExpress. So no, Apple doesn't certify, as far as I know, Qi chargers in general, because it's not their own technology, it's not kind of a proprietary thing. I understand why you might be concerned, but remember that Apple was allowing wireless charging well before MagSafe came onto the scene. So the iPhone 11, and was it the 11 was the first? No, the iPhone 10 was the first, then the 10R, and the 10S, and then the 11, and then the 12 and the 13 have MagSafe, which is Qi, but with a magnet ring around it. So, yeah, you should be absolutely fine with that. There's no reason that it should cause any problems. Just don't buy the cheapest one you can find. Tim Beaton asks, iCave answers, hi, any thoughts or more info on this rumoured 27-inch mini LED display being talked about? Pricing, announcement, and release dates. So my biggest thoughts on this is we've heard that it might be coming towards WWDC. Originally, this is the one that was thought to be going into an iMac, and now it looks like it's going to be a standalone display with mini LED inside. Probably also going to be 5K if it's at 27 inches. That would be my best guess. So this would be kind of a Studio Pro display, but not quite up to the Pro Display XDR level, which is the bigger 32-inch one. Unless some of the feedback that Apple has been getting is that 32 inches is too big for what people want to use, but also it's going to be difficult to do promotion, at least at anything above 5K. 5K is already very difficult to do in terms of the amount of data that needs to be going through in order to get that kind of refresh rate. Remember as well, though, promotion isn't always at that high refresh rate, so it might be that they do some interlacing with generated frames from the internal CPUs, the internal Apple Silicon chips. But I think WWDC is the most likely time. We are expecting to at least have a reveal for the Mac Pro there. Whether it's going to be on sale straight away or not is another matter entirely, but that's my guess. Zain Noorani. First up, as I'm aware, the iPhone 12 Pro Max can record up to 4K 60 video, but for some reason your uploads are only in 1080p. Is there any particular reason that you use 1080p instead of 4K? My best guess would be because of transfer speeds over AirDrop, or maybe a software limitation of Filmic Pro, which is the recording app that you use. So the reason that I actually do 1080p is none of the above. It's basically because I have to get these videos uploaded quickly because it tends to be news content, and 4K is going to take a lot longer to upload. It's going to take a lot longer for YouTube to process, and let's be honest, you're just looking at me. Do we need to be in 4K? I don't think it's going to make this video any more engaging, any better, so why bother? It also means that the Mac has to do more work, it's more storage, it's more everything. There's no real advantage to it for me. Most people are watching it on their phones and probably not looking at my face all the way through this anyway. Number two, I know people have asked you this a lot now, but do you think we could finally see Pro apps, Final Cut Pro, Pro Logic, Xcode, etc. come to the iPad, and in what capacity might they come in? Yeah, I do think they're going to be coming. I said it basically from once we got Apple Silicon, because obviously we got Final Cut already running on basically an A12Z when we had the developer transition kit, so we know that the hardware is physically capable. It's more a case of Apple updating their software so that it actually matches and works with the right interfaces. So there shouldn't be any massive technical issues with doing it. It's more about making it useful with the interface that you use for touch. And number three, I had lost my wallet the other day and then found it in a place where someone else had put it. That got me thinking, do you think that we could ever see an AirTag in card form? The current shape doesn't really fit in many, if any, wallets. Also, do you think there might be a slightly different functionality to it in any way? So, yes, wallet AirTags would be great. So, like my one. So this has actually got a little AirTag pocket on the front of it, and to be fair, it's one of these quite slim wallets. I really like it. This was about £8. The AirTag obviously was about £30, but I feel like that's a pretty good deal altogether. I don't see that they're going to do thinner ones, and part of the reason for that is that I don't think Apple wants any more excuses for people to say that they're being stalked with AirTags, but I also don't know how you would make it function differently. And also, if you make it thinner, the battery is going to be shorter in terms of lifespan, and you wouldn't be able to use a replaceable battery. And then how would you charge it? Would it have to be like on MagSafe? It throws in a whole bunch of extra difficulty, but you can definitely get cheap wallets with AirTags that fit. Next up, Evan Rodgers, iCave Answers. What are your thoughts on the latest Applegate? Apparently, a bunch of people are big mad about a very minor coil whine on the Mac Studios. Now, I kind of get it from some points of view, because a lot of people are buying a Mac Studio to go in a recording studio. So the last thing that you want is any kind of background noise. One of the things that I have to try and remember to do when I'm recording a video in here is actually I turn off my spinning hard drives that are attached underneath the desk, because otherwise we get the spinning sound coming through the microphone, which is attached to the desk just down here. And it is really, really annoying. So I can kind of get why people are annoyed by it, but also most people tend to kind of isolate. If they're in a studio environment, they will isolate. It's still probably the quietest computer going, given the power levels that it puts out. Master Gavalchek asks, iCave Dave, do you think the M1 will be discontinued soonish when the M2 arrives? Maybe M1 Ultra stays. So I don't think that they're going to discontinue the M1. I think, and I said this from actually before we even knew it was called M1, I think the way that Apple's likely to do this is create the M1, and then when M2 comes out, they're going to drop the price of the M1s so that we get a cheaper option. So we've talked about this as being the Mac Mini SE and the MacBook SE. I think we were the first to kind of mention that name. I know a few people have jumped on the idea now, but that's my thoughts. Is just like with the iPhones, when the iPhone 12 comes out, the iPhone 11 dropped down to being a cheaper starting point. And I think that's what Apple will likely do with M1, because M1 is still very, very, very capable. Even once M2 is here, I don't think it's going to make a huge difference. I don't think it needs to instantly replace it, but I think it will take the place of the M1, and then the M1 can drop down the range slightly, giving Apple a way of kind of introducing people to the Mac at lower prices, which they couldn't really do with Intel because they were paying the Intel premiums on the chips themselves. Sean P asks, I gave answers. Hey Dave, thanks again. Quick question. There are lots of rumours that the Apple TV that was updated last year was only one of two. Any chance we could see an update to the Apple TV this year? Now, personally, I would be surprised. I know there was talk about a gaming-focused Apple TV, maybe with an M1 inside. It doesn't make that much sense to me. The M1 is not a great gaming machine regardless. Does it have more graphics performance than an Apple TV? Yes. But honestly, I think the real reason that the Apple TV was updated, and I've said this again in previous videos, is that they were using an A10X. They moved over to an A12 chip, but not an X chip. Therefore, the performance is actually about the same. It's slightly slower on graphics on the new version than the old version. But the reason that they did it was because they're still producing A12 chips. They weren't producing A10X chips. The A10X, because it's a beefier chip, would also cost more to produce. So this was really a cost-cutting exercise and a reason to kind of introduce the new remote control. And also, let's remember that when this new remote was introduced, which everyone applauded, it also meant that you couldn't use a lot of the games that you previously used on Apple TV that you played with the remote, because the remote had accelerometers in it, and the new one doesn't. So it was a bit of a weird sidestep. Do I think there's another one on the way? I don't think they're going to release one immediately. I think if there is another Apple TV to come, it's going to be more along the lines of when we get webcams built into it, maybe a soundbar built into it, so it's a HomePod Apple TV hybrid, and probably FaceTime cameras, LiDAR, so that it can detect movement, so you get that kind of Kinect, Wii Motion kind of thing built in, but it's by detecting your movement visually rather than with accelerometers. That's my thought if they do anything like that. And they'll then tie that into Apple Fitness Plus as well. Team Kinetics asks, I gave answers. Total iPad sales were down 2.2% last year on year. Do you think this might be due to price versus function? MacBook Air is cheaper than the 12.9-inch iPad Pro. Could the dip in sales prompt Apple to make iPadOS more functional? We know they're different devices for different purposes, but is this communicated correctly by Apple to the masses? I'm pretty confident that this was not a response to the usefulness of iPads. As far as I'm aware, and I didn't actually get to listen to the earnings call this quarter rather, because I was at work at the time, but I have a feeling that the reason that the iPad sales were down is actually because of supply constraints this time. It's weird, but even the cheapest iPads have had like almost a 4-week lead time on them since just after the launch. We managed to buy 2 instantly that they came out, got them on release day, but since then I think they're still supply constrained right now, and I think that's probably the biggest reason that the sales are down. They're not down massively, but they're also huge in schools and things like that, and you know, they double the amount of Chromebooks that are sold into schools just with the iPad. Also from Team Kinetics, I gave answers. Now that GeForce Now is native to Apple Silicon, could this be the future of Mac gaming? The ability to play any compatible games from your Steam library on any Apple device could convince casual gamers to try macOS now that it can game. I'm not 100% sure on this one. I've not used GeForce Now. I signed up for it and then never got around to using it. Is it any good? If you guys out there have tried it, do let me know. I would be more likely to expect that we get an Apple kind of version of Vulkan and Molten ML, which are the kind of translation layers that Steam uses for their Proton stuff. I think to kind of play Windows games on Linux, and if that came to the Mac, that would be great, and then we could do it natively. I'm not sure. The kind of cloud gaming thing still seems a little bit weird to me. Latency is going to be an issue, at least in competitive gaming. So we'll see on that side, but I wouldn't hold your breath that this is now going to revolutionise gaming for the Mac. But cool that you can. So that's it for this particular I Gave Answers, guys. We've got more to come, and as I say, live stream tonight. There is a link up in the cards and in the description down below, so join me then. Thanks so much, and we'll see you then.